Hello everybody, my name is Sam, welcome to Rush Reality, thank you for joining me. Today I've got for you the ultimate buyer's guide for virtual reality sim racing. Now I absolutely love sim racing, it's one of the most enjoyable things you can do in virtual reality, but it can be a bit of a money pit. Once you get the bug, you're continually looking for ways you can upgrade your setup. I've been there before, I promise you, if you get into it, one day you'll find yourself in that position. So I'm going to try and help you avoid the pitfalls and have the best experience you possibly can without spending too much money. So I'm going to look at each category of item and I'm going to tell you the best entry level point that you can just jump in and have a great time with. The best bang for your buck option if you want to spend just a little bit more but really upgrade your experience. And lastly, the top tier options where you want to go balls to the wall and have an absolutely awesome time. We're going to talk about wheels and pedals, we're going to talk about rigs and cockpits, we'll talk about headsets, and we'll talk about any immersion add-in features. So jumping straight in with wheels and pedals, absolutely one of the most important parts of a sim racing build. Now if you're just jumping in and want those entry level products, you should be looking at the Logitech G29 or G23, or the wheel I started out with, the Thurstmaster T300. Now they're both really good products and there's pros and cons to each. I opted for the Thurstmaster T300 because I wanted the belt driven system. The Logitech wheels use a gear driven feedback system. It's not quite as smooth and direct as the belt driven offerings from Thurstmaster, but I really do like the wheel that comes with the G29 and the G23. It's really nice quality, it's hand stitched leather on the outside, it really feels like a good piece of kit. I also think that the Logitech pedals are very usable and it's quite easy to get hold of the shifter should you want to add one into the system. Now whichever one of those wheels you go for, you'll get a set of pedals that comes with it. Now in both cases that's going to be okay and it's going to get you by, but it's not going to be the best pedals on the market. So let's kick it up a gear. What's the best bang for your buck offering for wheels and pedals? Well, I say you should do what I did and go with the Fanatec CSL DD. That is a direct drive wheelbase. That essentially means that the wheel is connected directly to the motor. There's no delay in your feedback, it's all very strong, very powerful and very immediate. It communicates a lot more about what's going on the track and you really feel very connected to the car. It's a very lifelike experience. Now you'll need to pair the CSL DD base with a wheel and there's quite a lot of offerings to choose from. If I'm honest, I don't really think you can go wrong. Most of Fanatec's wheels are very good. I would personally say look for a used model and find the best deal you can get. Maybe you prefer complete round wheels, or maybe you want more of a Formula or GT style rim. That's what I've gone with, but just go with whatever you like or the best deal you can find and I'm sure you'll have a great time. For the best bang for your buck pedals, this is where things like load cells start to come in. Now the cheaper pedals that we mentioned in the entry level offerings use what's called a potentiometer. That measures what position the pedal's in at any point. Now the higher end offerings will go with something called a load cell that directly measures how much force is being put into it. You can usually find setups that require a lot more force and it's much more lifelike. Some great ones to look out for would be the CSL Elite with the load cell or the Clubsport V3s. Really good pedals, they come at a fair price. I'd also say, whilst we're talking good bang for your buck offerings for wheels and pedals, it might be worth checking out the offerings from Mozza. They're a fairly new company that have started dropping some really compelling products at fair price points. Particular shout outs to the Mozza R5, which is now the cheapest route into direct drive feedback on the market, though slightly less torque than what you get with something like the CSL DD, particularly if you use the full fat 8nm version, which is what I've gone with. Now I'll leave links to all these products in the description. If you were to spend slightly more, you could get something like the Mozza R6, which looks like a very compelling product and I would recommend you check it out. For me, I opted for the Fanatec because I like their ecosystem. There's lots that's already out there. There's a very good second-hand market, so I can upgrade at any point and just add little bits to my setup. So what about the top tier? What if you want to have the best experience you possibly can? Well then, I'd recommend you look at something like the Fanatec DD2 or the Simucube Ultimate. They are very powerful direct drive wheelbases. They can generate some insane force, so it really is battling with the car out on the track. But they come with a hefty price tag from 2 to 4 times the cost of the CSL DD. For top tier pedals, you can get into some really expensive tech for pedals. Some that I would say is potentially unnecessary. I've seen some very fancy hydraulic pedals that look really impressive, but I think they might be a little bit far. They often involve quite a lot more tech than you would see on a standard car. I get it with things like the brake, but with things like the throttle and the clutch, there isn't that much more that you need that isn't already there from those pedals we've spoken about earlier. My real go-to recommendation for a great quality bit of kit at that top line would be something like the Heusinkveld Ultimates. Really quality pedals. I've been lucky enough to try out the Heusinkveld Sprints and was very impressed. The Ultimates are a step up from those, and I would love to add those to my setup one day. So once you've got all this gear, you need something to mount it onto. So now let's talk about cockpits. Now the entry-level cockpit, something that many of us started on, I certainly did, is the humble table clamp. That is when you take a little clamp, mount it under your wheelbase and just mount it directly to your desk. Not every base will be able to do this, but lots of the entry-level stuff like the Thurstmasters and the Logitechs will be able to, and you'll still have a pretty good experience. The pedals are a little frustrating. I usually found that I had to plant a box behind it so that it would keep planted, but it's very usable and it's a good way to jump in without spending too much money. So up to the best bang for your buck offering, I would say what I used for quite a long time, up until very recently, is what you should check out. That is the Playseat Challenge. Now the Playseat Challenge is a foldable rig. That means if you're not sim racing all the time, when you're not using it, you can fold it away and get it out of sight. It's comfortable, it's got an Alcantara seat that is nice to sit in for long play sessions, but it does have many downsides. It's not very sturdy, it rattles a lot, it shakes and it moves, and nothing is quite the same. If you want the best sim racing experience, then you want repeatable motions. You know that every time you go into a certain corner, you apply the same amount of force and you'll get the same result. With a cockpit that isn't rigid, that is really difficult to do. But it doesn't mean it's not worth using. The Playseat Challenge was my main cockpit for well over 2 years, up until very recently, and I really enjoyed my time with it. I've used it for lots of the videos on my channel. If you flick back through, you'll see it in action. It's a really good piece of kit. But up to the top tier, if you want the best experience, I actually think that upgrading your cockpit is one of the biggest upgrades you can do. And it's something that really will take it to the next level. For the top tier, I'd recommend you either look at one of the tubular cockpits, something like the GT Amiga Titan, the Trak Racer TR8. They look really cool, they look really solid. Or if you want to spend just a little bit more, you go with what I went with, something like an aluminium profile rig. Now, very recently, like within the last couple of weeks, I upgraded to the Trak Racer TR80, and I've been blown away. Now, this thing is completely solid. There's no wobble at all, it's so sturdy, there's no flex. Very enjoyable experience. I've paired it with a GT seat, which is really comfortable, and I've played a good few endurance races. I've had no issues whatsoever. I've really enjoyed my time with it. The advantages of aluminium profile is that they're completely adjustable, they're completely modular, you can add things to it. It's a really repeatable system. It's a system used by lots of companies and there's lots of different accessories you can add to it. They're really cool. Maybe not the most living room friendly setups. If it's something that's going to be in sight quite often, then maybe consider one of the tubular offerings. But for the ultimate sturdiness and rigidity, then do look at an aluminium profile. So onto the headset. It can't be a VR sim racing build without a virtual reality headset. So the entry level point from new would be the Quest 2, or maybe you'll find a used Rift S on the market. That'd be very solid and get you into a fantastic experience. The Quest 2 continually outperforms its price point. It's a really fantastic bit of kit. So what's the best bang for your buck option? Well, maybe still the Quest 2. As I say, it does outperform that bracket quite consistently. You might give a shout to the HP Reverb G2. I use my HP Reverb G2 quite a lot for sim racing. It's got a slightly higher resolution, it makes the whole experience look just a little bit better, but it does cost more and there isn't a massive difference in it. So into the top tier, what headset if you want the best experience you can possibly have? Well, the best experience I've had in sim racing was with the Varjo Aero. That is a very expensive VR headset, but the quality is amazing. The colours look absolutely fantastic. I've done a review on this channel where I used some sim racing footage and it really showed the difference between the HP Reverb G2 and the Quest 2, and the Aero really did stand out as something impressive. You could also look to something like the Pimax offerings. Their wider FOV could be very useful in a racing scenario. You can see if anything's coming up at the sides, really useful. So that's the headsets, but lastly I want to go to any immersion add-in features that you should consider for that perfect experience. First thing I'll give a shout out to is the Butkicker Gamer 2. Not only does that product have one of the best names in the tech world, it really is a cool bit of kit. The Butkicker Gamer 2 uses the sound from the game and pushes it through an amplifier to actually move your rig. You mount it onto the bottom of your rig under your seat. It sends vibrations through the seat that really makes you feel like you're sat in a car. For just over a couple of £100, it really is a significant immersion upgrade. And then for a similar price point, you've got wind simulators. These usually come in the form of two big tubes that travel up the side of your rig and then blast out air towards you. Not only would it help you keep cool during long races, it also adds to the immersion. I do often think though in most cases you'd be driving a car that would be sealed, and in real life you wouldn't be hit with that much air. Unless you're winding down the windows or driving open top, it's not necessarily going to be reflective of the true experience, but I'm sure it will feel great as you're flying down the track. And then for the top tier ultimate immersion add-in feature, you want to look to the world of motion platforms. The best priced motion on the market at the minute, maybe something like the Yaw 2 that's recently just launched. The guys over at Reverb Reality have done a really cool video on that the other day that really looked interesting. It's a pretty good price and it adds so much to your experience. Another option includes the DOF Reality Motion Platform. That's the highest selling motion platform on the market, and it comes in at a really impressive price. It's worth checking out if you think you'd like to add that to your experience. The main reason why I haven't looked into that personally is that you need so much space for motion, because you need to not only have the space your rig takes up, but any space it could take up if it was to be moving from side to side. And then for the top tier motion platforms, you want to look at something like the Next Level Racing Motion Platform V3. It's tried and tested, really good quality piece of kit. You can mount it on the bottom of lots of existing hardware. It's kind of why I looked into something like an aluminium profile rig in the first place, because I knew I'd have potential to upgrade down that line in future should I want to. Add all that together and you will have a fantastic experience. I'll put a little breakdown in the description of exactly what I would put together out of those options to make that entry level build, that bang for your buck build, and that top of the line build. As I say, the links to those products will all be in the description. But let me know your thoughts. Is there anything I've missed? Do you have a sim racing setup at the moment? Is there anything you'd be looking to pick up? Thank you so much for sticking with me. If you enjoyed this video, press the like button and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.